Yes, we are live right here on this Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for the good fight. Ooh, it's the good fight. Ooh, it's the good fight. Thank you so much for joining us for the good fight. I greet you in the spirit of Salbona, that Zulu tribal greeting, which on its face means hello. But when you dig a little deeper, it is an invitation. It is an invitation for you to ask the person, will you receive the whole of who I am into your space on this night or this day or in this moment, in this season? Will you allow me to bring all of who I am? Will you give me permission not to have to check identities at the door, but all of who I am and what makes me who I am? Let me enter into your life in this moment. And if the answer is yes, the person will say, yay, Bo Salbona. We don't do that, but I haven't really taught that part much, but we don't do that part much. But that's how it goes. And then the same thing, it's reciprocal. So I'm asking you to allow me to bring my whole self into the space with you. And I also want you to do the same. I want you to feel totally liberated and totally free to show up in the fullness of who you are as well. And then we can say that we are bound together as one in our humanity. There's nothing we can do about the fact that we are bound together by our humanity. You can't change. I don't care nothing about no AI. I don't care nothing about no laws, no policies, no whatevers. There's nothing you can do to change that. But we can change how we interact with each other. And so the good fight is an opportunity for us to think about how we are interacting with each other, human to human, as we are grounded in our faith, how our faith is used to dictate our relationships with each other. So that's what we wrestle with on Tuesday nights. And so I am glad that you are here. And earlier today, I was writing a proposal, and I had to go back and remember where the good fight came from. It came from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 12. We're going to fight the good fight of faith. And so this, I guess I probably should define fight. Like fight, I don't mean fighting. I don't mean, anything that is physical. I don't mean perpetuating any kind of harm. I don't mean like beating anybody, putting your hands on somebody, but the fight like a struggle, like the struggle. We talk about being in the struggle for liberation, the struggle for dismantling systems, the struggle for getting rid of oppression, the struggle for eliminating and eradicating poverty. So that's what the fight is all about. And so this is a good fight that I'm asking us to participate in so that the world will be sinless. I am not one who believes that we're supposed to be worried about individuals and how they sin, because I believe that we are just a made up sin the same way that we've made up race as it relates to individuals. I don't think it's a sin for you to smoke a cigarette. I don't think it's a sin for you to drink alcohol. I don't think it's a sin for you to have premarital sex. I don't think it's any of those are sins. But what I do believe are sins are societal sins: poverty, hunger, lack of access to healthcare, incompetent healthcare, culturally biased healthcare, redlining, not inaccurate, ineffective education. Like those are the things that I believe are the sins that we are called to fight against. So this good fight is about fighting on those shores. That's the good fight that I'm talking about. This is not about individuals at all. It's about systems. Now, individuals control the system, yes, but I don't want us to fight individuals. I want us to fight the system. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the good fight on this night. If this is your first time joining us for the good fight, there are 4 ways that you can engage. One way is to see yourself reflected in a mirror. You are reading, you are listening, you are hearing about a story that someone is telling or a story that's in the text, and you can find yourself playing one or more of those characters. If you see yourself in the story, then you have an opportunity to interrogate yourself, ask yourself, is this how I want to show up for folks? Is this a good look for me? Is this what I'm trying to do? And if the answer is yes, pat yourself on the back. If the answer is no, then you have an opportunity to make some changes in your life if you so choose. The second way that you can engage is to look through a window. So this is not a reflection of who you are. You don't even recognize yourself because you're not playing any of these roles. You're not familiar with them. It's not your lived experience. You don't even know anybody who has this lived experience, but you recognize the need to center somebody else's story because the world ain't about you. The world ain't all about me. The world is about all of us. So how do we center somebody else's story so that we can receive it and then allow the spirit or whatever you believe is at work within you to do what it's going to do with the story? Like, I have no idea. You have no idea the time, the place, the setting where you might use the story that you hear. But the important part is being willing to receive somebody else's story, because that is a huge thing to do. Because if a person shares a personal story with you, that means that they are trusting you with it. That means that they are hoping and believing that you are going to handle their story with holy hands, because storytelling is a sacred activity. It's a sacred pastime. So for them to feel enough, and sometimes they're not feeling close to you, because if they're using the story in a political setting or as part of a rally or something, and they're using those stories, they're not trusting you necessarily, but they know that the story is beneficial for the time. But when we're in more, if we're in a more cozy setting, then people are sharing because they trust you, and you don't want to betray that trust. A third way that you can engage with a good fight is to walk through a door. Let this be the beginning or an add-on to a conversation that's already been started. Beginning of a conversation, so a conversation that's just starting for you, or a conversation that is continuing. Like, you've already been introduced to it, but you're still thinking about it. And this is another layer that you can add on to it. So you're going to walk through the door so that even after this moment, after this hour, you will continue to think about it, talk about it, share it. This is not the only time that you will deal with it. And then the fourth way that you can engage is to comment right here. I am live today. Was it last week I wasn't live? I think it was last week I wasn't live, but I am live in the house today. Ooh, ooh. And so I will be able to engage with the comments as they come through. If this is not your first time joining us for the Good Fight, welcome. Every time you show up, I am excited. Let me give you the sign language for excited. You know, the sign we use to throw the fingers, the finger we use to throw finger signs. You know what I'm talking about? That middle finger that we use to throw finger signs. You bend it like this, and then you use it up against your chest to say, excited, I'm excited. That's how you do it. I'm excited. I'm excited every time we have an opportunity to be with each other. It just melts my heart. These are tender moments for me. So that's why we are here. That's the purpose and our mission and our goals, to decolonize our faith, to have a pure and raw faith as we interact with people, human to human. And as we interact with the creation, I realize that I do not say that enough. I'm always focused on humans as if the rest of the world doesn't matter. But in my heart, I do believe that the rest of the world matters. How we interact with the environment, how we interact with animals, how we interact with nature, like all of that is about the oneness. Miss Sarah turned me on to this poem called Trees. And there's this one line about the tree with its branches lifted up to give praise. And I was just like, I know that the Bible says, let everything that has breath. And so I know that trees have breath. I know that birds have breath. I know that dogs have breath. But I just never thought about looking at a tree and imagining its branches as hands that are raised and lifted up in praise and adoration to the creator. Like, and I've just been thinking about that since I read that poem last night. And so that's the kind of thing that I know is true, that we are one with the whole of creation. So I probably focus too much on humanity, but y'all just look, I'm a work in progress. I'm growing. So tonight, what I want to talk about, the topic that I put on the flyer is President Jesus. That's what I put on there, President Jesus. And so I guess what I'd like to do is probably start with the question of, this idea or this notion or this concept that there's supposed to be a separation between church and state. Up until this presidential administration, most of us really felt like there were some clear lines between state, church, and state that sometimes would get walked over, sometimes would get blurred. But by and large, we felt like, no, we really see how we are living into this ideal that there is a separation. But recently, it's been made, I mean, abundantly clear that we have now collapsed those two, that the church and the state seem to be one, that there's this agenda, this political agenda that's being pushed to govern according to one faith, to govern according to Christianity. So this Christocentric world that is being designed right before our eyes, that is being manifested right before our eyes, is not allowing for us to separate or to keep church and state separated. And so I'm not spending any time, I don't want to spend any time judging the administration for this, that, or the other. What I want to talk about, though, is is it realistic for us to even have the notion that you can separate church and state? And when I say church, I just mean faith. So I'm not talking about church as in Christians, because I'm also talking about people who do not worship at a church. So people who worship at a mosque, people who worship at a temple, people who worship in an arena, people who worship at somebody's house, people who worship by themselves. Like however your faith manifests in its practice, I'm just calling all of that church. And so basically what I'm saying is church would represent the sacred, and then things that are not related to faith will represent the secular. And so the converging of those two, sacred and secular, maybe I should just use those words so nobody will confuse me for thinking that I'm talking about Christianity. I'm talking about faith. So whatever you believe in, you can be Wiccan, whatever you believe in, should that ever have been an idea that we have where we believe that these two things are not connected, or that we want to make sure that we separate them? Because I remember talking to Denise, she's a friend of mine from church, and I remember talking to her, and I said to her, and I might have said this to her more than once, that I believe that everything is political. I don't believe that there's any part of my life that is not political. And so I guess maybe we should also have a conversation about what it means when you say politics. Because is that the problem? So the work that I do as a facilitator, when we are having conversations around when we're having conversations around biases, when we're having conversations around we're having conversations about explicit bias. We're having conversations about differences. We're having conversations about racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, fat phobia, transphobia. We're having conversations about all of these isms and all of these issues that divide us. And what many of us, I think, fail to recognize is that when you set up beliefs around these issues, when you state a position on these issues, when you stand up and you are convicted, you have these convictions that you carry about these issues, then that is political. For you to have a framework, whether it's moral or not, when you have a framework around something that causes you to respond to it in a certain way, then that's your politic. And so is it possible for us to say that life is not about politics? Our lives, we can separate our faith from our politics, when really the way that we believe and what we believe is rooted in our convictions around it. So it's rooted in our politic. Oh, here we go. Hey, Triana. Hey, Triana. So glad that you are here. Absolutely. And so is it realistic for us? So I guess that's the first question. Do you think it's realistic for us to assume that it is possible to live in a world where we separate our faith from our politics? Because many of us, when we think about people who are single issue voters, people who are, say, anti-abortion, a person could come on the scene. Let me just use me as an example. I can come on the scene. I can enter my name into the realm of politics to say, I want to become I want to run for Congress. I want to run for the House of Representatives. Whatever that is, I say I want to run for. And I have a platform telling you what I believe. If I say that I am an anti-abortionist, there are several people who will vote for me just because I say that. It does not matter whatever else I say. It does not matter however else I feel. If you align with me on that one issue, then you will say that you will vote for me. Okay, so I'm going to get your vote because you are anti-abortion. When I ask you the question, why are you anti-abortion? You're going to respond by saying, because that's what I believe. I don't believe that the Lord says that, or something to that effect, that my faith, my God, the Bible, the Lord. And so your politics, how you are going to vote, is rooted in what you believe in your faith. So is it possible for us to then say we're going to separate church and state when you are voting based on what you believe from the Bible? You're operating in the state based on how you feel in the theological realm. You're operating in the sacred world. You're operating in the secular world based on how you feel in the sacred world. So are we really separating church from state? So I guess that would be the first question, is to see how you all feel about that. Do you really believe, not that there is or isn't a separation of church and state now, but do you believe that we should be living in that should be something that we want to realize, that we want to manifest this separation? And then a conversation I was having with my brother, when we were talking about this issue of church and state, and he's where I got the text for it. So the text that I'm going to read in just a minute was inspired by this conversation with my brother, because my brother said that we were talking about, my brother's a Republican. The last time I re-registered to vote, I declared myself to be independent. But before that, I was a Republican. And before that, I was a Democrat. So I was a Democrat up until the time that I started working for the Human Rights Campaign, because I needed to be received in Republican spaces because I was doing political work. And in this state, in Arkansas, and it might be like this in other states, I'm not sure, but I'm only talking about Arkansas right now because this is where I had the lived experience. It was difficult to get into Republican spaces if they knew, or if I were identified by myself or from someone else, if someone else identified me as a Democrat. And so it was a political strategy for me to use to become Republican so that I could then enter into those spaces and try to have conversations that would break down barriers to acceptance and the embrace and the full inclusion of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer plus. And so that's why I became Republican. And so now when I think about politics, where I've evolved to is that I don't really feel like I'm Democrat or Republican, because for me, it's like it's two sides of the same coin, especially in the recent moments where we've had people who have run on a Republican ticket who then, after they are voted in by these constituents because they were running on a Republican ticket, will then become Democrat, and vice versa. And so that makes me feel like, wait, if you can just willy-nilly I've been watching Steve Harvey's show, and I've been binge watching it. And I noticed that Cedric the Entertainer, that's his catchphrase. You can't be just doing blah, 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 all willy-nilly, whatever it is. And so I feel like that's what they're doing in the political realm. Like we're switching, we're gerrymandering. We are doing all of these things, like just creating all kinds of stuff. Both parties do it. And so I feel like what is happening right now? I cannot really tell the difference between the two of you in your behavior, but I do know the difference between your platforms. And so because of the platform, I felt like I was Democrat, but now I'm like, listen, I am not one of those people who votes for a Democrat just because you're a Democrat. I'm not going to vote for you just because you are a Republican. You got to give me more than that. And so I just decided that it would be best for me to be independent. And as a matter of fact, while we're talking about that, as far as I'm concerned about Black folks, I feel like if we would just if we would just divest from the systems of Republican and Democrat, we would really carry more power in the election cycle, because those people who are running on those platforms would woo us without thinking that they automatically have our vote. Remember when Joe Biden was like, if you black, I know you're gonna vote for me, and everybody was in an uproar. Black people were like, wait a minute, we are not a monolith. We absolutely are not. So why not show up as independent? And the person has to prove themselves as a viable candidate to us, and not just think that just because you say I'm an R or a D that you automatically have our vote. So I think that we would be more powerful. And so I'm exercising that power by being an independent. But my brother, who has declared himself to be a Republican, runs on the Republican ticket, has won more than once on the Republican ticket. Right now, he is a city board member, a city council member in Lee County, Florida, on the Republican ticket. He brought me back to this text that I'm going to read in just a minute, found in 1 Samuel chapter 8, about the people. So he believes that, I don't know if I want to say he believes, but his argument right now, what he posits for us is this. Perhaps it is ordained by God for Trump to be president, not because of who Trump is, but because what the people have asked for. So since enough people voted for Trump to be in office, then God says, yes, let the people's voice be heard, because that's what happened in 1 Samuel. The people called for a king, and they should not have called for the king, but they did it anyway. And God said, okay, give them what they want. So perhaps that is what we are living into right now, where the people have raised up their voices. Now, am I talking about every person? Obviously not, because I know everybody did not vote for this administration, but enough people, the majority of people, based on the Electoral College, because we're not talking about the popular vote, because that's totally different from the Electoral College. So based on the Electoral College and how it has been designed to preserve slavery is the root of it, and we are still carrying it forth to this day. I don't know why. I know why we haven't abolished it, but anyway, so according to the Electoral College, enough people, the majority, said this is who we want in office. And so my brother's argument is, so perhaps God said, okay, if that's what you want, then that's what you'll get, and then we'll see how that work out for you. Me and my cousin talk like that. Me and my love, we talk like that all the time. Like, how that's working out for you? Like, you made this decision. You were I'm standing 10 toes down. I'm standing on business. Okay, working out. And so perhaps that's what's happening. And so that's the other question that I have for you. So the first question is, do you really believe it's something that it is possible for us to separate church and state? The second question is, do you believe that it's possible that God said, okay, the people have spoken, I'm not going to intervene, I'm going to give you what you want. You wanted this administration, okay, you can have it. Let's see how that's going to work out. And and I guess part of that argument is that God is sitting back right now. Like, God is not going to intervene because y'all the one said y'all want it. And God says, okay, if that's what you want, go for it. And that's where we are. So do you believe that? So those are two questions on the table right now. So before I go any further, I want to make sure that I read that text, so you'll know what that second question is rooted and grounded in. This text from the Bible, 1 Samuel chapter 8. Right now, I think I'm only going to read verses 1 through 9. I think it goes all the way to 20. I think there are 22 verses in this chapter, but I only want to read 1 through 9 for right now. And let's just talk about that. Let's just ground ourselves in the text, in the story of what we're talking today, so that we can just use it as a platform. Use it as a platform so that we can jump off from there. Okay, so let me pull that up right now. This is 1 Samuel chapter 8, 1 through 9. Yep, here it is right here. Why can't I ever? I used to be able to zoom in. I don't know why I can't zoom in anymore. What if I do this? Will this allow? Oh, okay. I see. If I get rid of that sidebar over there, then it gets bigger for me. Okay, so here is 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 through 9. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 through 9. Reading from the New International Version of the Bible. This is the New International Version of the Protestant Bible. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. The name of his firstborn was Joel or Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah. And they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." When they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So they are doing to you. Now listen to them. Warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." I actually thought it was brilliant for my brother to use this text to make his argument, because there's so much stuff in it that I think absolutely applies to what we're talking about today. First, let me say this, though. I believe that passage, 1 Samuel chapter 8, absolutely answers the first question. Do we really believe that there is a separation between church and state? And I'm going to say, just reading the story in the context of our time now. And some people, I think that's where we kind of sometimes have a breakdown in our interpretation of the Bible, because what some of us want to do is we want to read the Bible and we want to read it literally. Literally meaning we want to say what it means. What it says is what it means, not recognizing that it was written for such a time as it was. It applies for such a time as it was written. And so we have the tendency to think that it is possible for us to pick the Bible up from 2,000 years ago and just plop it down on us in this world in 2025 and be like, "See, this is what God said." And it's not possible to do. No, I'm not going to say it's not possible to do it, because people do it all the time. But it renders your faith ineffective to do that, because these words were written because they were informed and influenced by the environment, by the socio-political events, by the time that it was written in, by the culture, by the language, by all those things that are not prevalent today. So you can't have the same situation from 2,000 years ago now. Just like we don't have the same situation that we had from the 60s. We don't have the same situation that we had from the 1800s. We're not going to have the same situation that we're going to have when it's 2075. It's just not possible. And so we have to read the text and apply it to the time in which we are living. And so because of that, putting it in the context of today, I can say confidently that the Bible answers the first question, that it's not possible to separate church and state, because the people go to Samuel, the elders of Israel go to Samuel and say, "Give us a king. We are looking for someone to govern us." That's a political desire. That's a political request. Who is going to govern the way that we live together? We want a king. God says, "No, I am your king." So God says, you don't need a king. You don't need to go to politics. Here I am right now. Like, I'm the one who's making all of your life possible in the sacred realm. I'm making it possible for you to live politically in the sacred realm, but you are rejecting that. So God is saying you shouldn't separate it. But hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you can do. And so that's how the story begins. But let me give you just a little bit of the backstory. So Samuel was actually serving as king. And as king, he was doing right by God and he was doing right by the people, as far as we can tell. Now, again, we have to remember that whoever has the pen has the power. And there were people with writing utensils, with writing tools that wrote the Bible. So whoever had the power in that moment to write the Bible, they're writing from their powerful position. So as far as we know from what we're reading, Samuel was a good king, doing right by God and doing right by the people. Now, if we were to ask the oppressed people of that time, who did not have the power of the pen, whether or not Samuel was a good king for the people, a good leader, not a king, a good leader for the people, then they might have a different response. Like, so based on what we know, based on what we have, Samuel did right. And so Samuel was getting old. And as he was getting older, just like we see happening in and amongst us, not just now, but we have a history of this, where people who are in power, they open doors for other people who are close to them to also be in power. So they will make jobs for their children or their spouse. Like, I think about that a lot with Black mega church leaders. So when I think about TD Jakes, when I think about, let's use TD Jakes. I can think about Creflo Dollar too, but right now let's just think about TD Jakes, because TD Jakes came onto the scene as a pastor. TD Jakes. And then before you knew it, is now TD and Serena Jakes. Is it Serena? Oh my goodness, I might be mispronouncing his wife's name. Oh my, I definitely don't mean to do that, because names are important. TD Jakes' wife name. Serena. It's Serena, Serita. And so then before you know it, Serena Jakes is now preaching too. And now not only do we have TD Jakes and Serena, but we also have his daughter, oh my goodness, is it Sarah? I don't know why I'm getting all these. If I wasn't trying to call these people's names, I would be saying, it would just be rattling off my tongue. But now that I'm trying, it's Sarah. And so Sarah Jakes Roberts. And so now you've got all three of them. Well, I don't see it. I'm not following them. So let me back up. When I first started following him, this is what it was. Like, I'm not following him now, so I don't really know how much his wife is preaching. But I do know that there was a time that she was given a platform because her husband had a platform. And now his daughter has a platform because he had a platform on the same TV brand and all of that. So what TD Jakes has done for his family is nothing new. That's why Ecclesiastes keeps reminding us that there's nothing new under the sun. We should not be surprised by anything that we see, because if we go back and look, we can find that it has happened before. And so that's exactly what Samuel did. So it's time. Samuel is getting old. He realizes that he does not have the vitality and the vigor to continue to serve the way he used to serve. And so he needs to hand off his ministry. So who is he going to hand it to? He hands it off to his sons. Again, we see this happening all the time. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying we see it happen. I'm never, ever trying to pass judgment on something. I'm just stating facts as we know them, as we can document them, as we can verify the veracity of them. Like, that's all I'm doing. So Samuel says, okay, I'm going to hand it off to your sons. Even if we talk about President Trump in his last administration, think about his daughter, think about his sons-in-law, like, think about those people who came into power because he was in power. So all of this we've seen before. And so when Samuel hands off his ministry to his sons do not care for his ministry in the same way. The Bible that we just read, this passage that we just read, said that they did not follow the ways of their daddy. And not only that, but they perverted justice, which means that they were not trying to do right by the people. This is I know these your sons, but we ain't trying to hear, because they ain't right. They ain't you. They your sons, but they ain't you. And that is what caused the people to ask for a king, because they were looking to God, looking to God's representative, which would have been Samuel, to say, hey, we need to be governed by people that are going to do right by us. And so I don't blame them for asking for a king for that purpose. We are used to people who are not perverting justice. We are used to people who are trying to do right by both the Lord and the people. Because really, honestly, if you say that you are a Christian, for those of us, for those of you who say you are a Christian, the only way you can make the cross is to have the vertical going up to God in reverence and praise, and the horizontal extending out to people in service. And so you cannot say that you love God without service to people, because just loving God does not create the cross. And for those of you who profess to be Christians, you absolutely idolize the cross. And so the only way that you can do right by the cross is to worship God through service of humanity. And so this is what the people are saying. You cannot give us as leaders people who will not serve God, serve the community in the name of God, because that's what the message is all about. Now, again, I'm putting this in the context of who we are now, talking about Christians, because the Bible, if we're going to talk about Samuel, it wasn't no Jesus. Let's not get that twisted. There wasn't a Jesus and there wasn't a cross. So I'm using it because now in 2025, when we talk about what Christianity looks like, because Jesus is not even a Christian. Jesus did not come to create, to establish a religion. That's not what Jesus's purpose was at all. Jesus did not come to save your sins. That is not Jesus's purpose at all. That is what we have made it. So in the context of that, in our context, that's why I'm saying that the conversation is the same, that we need a leader that's going to do right by the people in the name of our God. And so people who say, I'm a Christian, and the reason I'm using Christianity is not because I favor it. It's not because I believe that it is better than any other religion, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Wiccan. I don't believe it's better than anything. It's just that the situation that we are in now, with this political agenda forcing us towards a Christocentric world, that's why I'm using Christianity. So for you to say we're going to be Christian, that would mean, if you want this to be a Christian society, that would mean that you would have to, absolutely, it would require and command and compel you to do right by the people in the name of your God, because that's what the cross is about. And the people are saying, but that ain't what's happening. So we need a king because that's what we want. I was with them. I was with them until I was like, yes, give us a king that's gonna do right by God in accordance, do right by the people in accordance with God. I was with them. Here's where they lost me. We give us a king because all the other nations have a king. And so when they added that little piece, I said, wait now, what? Because everybody else got a king. So what, now we trying to keep up with the Joneses? And I would dare say that is part of our problem as well, in the context that we live in 2025. Many of us are trying to keep up with the Joneses. Who would be the Joneses? The people that we think have what we wish we had. So I'm not saying it's the Kardashians, because there are some people who do not have homes and wish they had homes, and that's what they would be if they're doing whatever it takes. I don't think I should use homes, but if they're doing whatever it takes that is causing harm to other people to get the house, then I can use it as an example. If they're doing by any means necessary, meaning that they're perpetrating harm and heaping trauma on people in order to get their house, then yes, now you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And so it's not necessarily that you're saying, I want to be rich. That's not necessarily so, but whatever somebody else has that you covet meaning that you want it in a deceitful way, then now we got problems. And so I'm like, wait now, is that why y'all want God? So y'all could be like everybody else? Because we were not created to be like everybody else. We were created to be divine expressions and to allow God to manifest through us just as we are, because that's what really makes the world so beautiful, that you can look at me and see a bona fide expression of God. You can see God when you look into my eyes, and then you can see somebody else, Triana, you can see somebody else, Takia, you can see somebody else, Verna, you can see somebody else, and here we have a distinct expression of God that don't look like me. It's like, wow, how did God do that? That's amazing. And that's why we say God is an awesome God. That's why we say what a mighty God we serve, because of that actual piece. But to say, no, we just want to be like everybody else, and to have this kind of religion that's trying to make us into these cookie cutters, like everybody who is Muslim is supposed to believe all of these things. Everybody believes the exact same thing. Everybody practices the exact same way. Everybody dresses like, no, that's just not what it's meant to be. It's meant for you to live your faith in the fullness of who you are as an individual, manifesting God all along the way. And so now when they say, okay, we want this king because everybody else has a king, Samuel is like, listen, y'all, what a good leader would do. A good leader says, I hear you. A good leader is an active listener. I want to understand you. As I am listening, I'm seeking to understand. I'm not even waiting for my turn to talk. Even if I don't get a chance to respond, that's okay, because I want you to feel heard. I want you to feel seen. I want you to know that you are respected. So Samuel takes a moment to listen to them. He listens to them make their request. And then I believe Samuel was like me. Okay, I feel you. I'm feeling you. But when they say, no, we want a king so we can be like everybody else, Samuel is now mad, because Samuel now says, wait, but the moment that you try to be somebody else, that means you're no longer going to be operating in the image of the one who created you. So you are now going to dilute your faith. You're going to dilute your God. You're going to change the landscape, because you were not created to be like everybody else. If you think about the way that we've been indoctrinated to believe Christianity based on the writings in the New Testament, it says that we are a chosen nation. We are a royal priesthood. We are set apart. That's what it means to be sanctified. People who say I'm sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost, it don't mean that you shout for 15 hours a day, 5 days a week. It means that you have been set apart. There is something about you that makes people want to get to know. I'm not talking about something about you because you wear a cross. I'm not talking about people like the Pentecostals that you can pay. Every time you see a Pentecostal, you can tell by the way they wear their hair. You can tell by the clothes that they're wearing. I'm not talking about sanctified in that way. I'm talking about the set apartness that gives you that spirit, that energy that's flowing through you, the power of God manifested in you as you show up for folks, that makes somebody say, I want to get to know you. I like you. I'm glad we met. Can I get your phone number? Not because they're trying to date you, not because they're trying to push up on you, but because they feel you. They feel God, and they feel you in this moment as God. And they are compelled, they are drawn to get to know more. There's something about you. That's what it means to be sanctified. And so Samuel is like, okay, so now Samuel is upset, because Samuel is like, no, that ain't how God works. But the people said, listen, we want a king. Samuel is so mad, as a good leader, even though he's mad in his human flesh, he knows it's not good to be driven by his emotions. Just like for us, it is not good for us to be driven by our emotions. Those of you who have children and you discipline them, what is the first rule of disciplining your children? Never, ever discipline them when you are angry. You cannot allow your emotions to drive your behavior. You have to take a moment to step back. You have to take a moment to breathe. You have to take a moment to center yourself, so that whatever behavior you are going to demonstrate, it is rooted and sourced in power, not in trauma, not in emotions, not in anything other than the power of your message that you're trying to get across. So Samuel recognizes this. He's mad. He doesn't want to act out of his anger, so he goes to the Lord and prays. God, listen. These people done pissed me off talking about they want a king. Now, we know that ain't how I know that ain't how you roll, but that's what they want. And I don't want to give it to them because I know it ain't right. And then they talking about they want to do what the other nations do. What are you talking about? I don't know what. Look, these your people. I'm just telling you what they said, because that's my job. I'm coming to you doing my job, because I've accepted these responsibilities, and I need to know what you gonna do. And that's really all that prayer is. Prayer is not all of these eloquent words. It's not all of this poetry that flows out of our mouth. It's not about all of this, how we can make people feel good and shout about what we're saying. Prayer is simply communication with God in whatever language is comfortable to you. Because the God that we say we serve, if we serve the God, if we all serve the same God, the one that I serve knows all the languages, knows slang, knows Ebonics, knows Spanish, knows Yoruba, whatever language you use, God knows. It ain't no special secret language you got to use. There's no, so you can talk however you want to talk. And so that's how I hear Samuel. Listen, because that's how I talk. Listen. And God's response is, that's what they want. Because what he had to remind Samuel of is that this ain't about you, boo. The world don't revolve around you. I am the one who runs the world. You know, God, like, I ain't Beyonce. Who run the world? Girl. I do believe that God as spirit can be a woman, no doubt about it. But God is not, but the world is not run by girls, it's not run by boys, God is saying it ain't run by any of you all. You all, you are my hands and feet. Absolutely, you are very important. I could not do this work without you. That is true. But at the end of the day, all things considered, everything that is happening to me. It's about how people feel about me, their behavior, their requests, their ideals, their behavior. Yeah, I said behavior. All of what they're doing is a reflection of how they feel about me. And so I don't need you to get mad at them. That's not, your anger towards them is not helpful. And that's why I think sometimes people, I think we misunderstand what it means to forgive. Because people think forgiving means that I have to give you a pass on what you've done. I don't have to hold you accountable. It doesn't matter if you take responsibility. That's how we've kind of built it. But that's not what forgiveness is supposed to be. Forgiveness is what God is asking from Samuel right now. I need you to take yourself out of the equation and understand that the way people treat you is based on how they see me. And if they have the audacity to treat you unkindly, to be mean to you, to be hateful towards you, that's because it's reflecting how they feel about me. They have not received me in their fullness. They have not made a commitment to me. They are not totally devoted to me. They have not given themselves over to me. They are acting out of their own understanding of who they are because they think they're the ones that's important. So don't take this personally, Samuel. This is not about you. It's about me. And I'm telling you, give the people what they want. Let them do what they're going to do. And ultimately, God says that because people going to do what they want to do anyway. Isn't that the argument that we make, that God gives us free will? Meaning that even though God doesn't want this for your life, even though God is setting up all kind of roadblocks so that you won't do this with your life, you still say, well, this is what I want to do. Because even I just said this the other day. I said, somebody said something like, I'm glad I did something. Or maybe it was me. Maybe it was me saying that I felt like I was supposed to call somebody, and I did, and I'm glad I did call them. I'm glad I listened. And then that's what I said. I said, I'm glad I listened this time. And I went on to say, because there are some times when I hear God saying something to me, and I tell God, no, I ain't gonna do that. Now I'm just being real about Denise. There are plenty of times, babe, if you let me roll the clock back, I can point to several times in my life where I clearly heard God say, this ain't gonna end well. And I said, but this is what I want to do anyway. So when we talk about free will, that's the argument that we are making, that even though God said no, we turn around and tell God yes, and God says, oh, okay. And then God asks the question, because you know you got to circle back. At some point, you're going to have to circle back, and God's going to be like, how did that work out for you? Oh, you came to tell me how that worked out? Okay, well, let me hear it. Because that's what prayer is. Prayer is our Prayer is our communication to God. God already knows what the prayer is going to be. So we're not informing God of anything about our prayers. We are simply acknowledging what God already knows, right? And what God has already planned to do. And so Samuel, this is what God is saying. Please do not get this twisted, sir. This is not about you at all. This is not about your leadership. It's not even about your son's lack of leadership. This is about the people wanting something for themselves that I am not ordaining. But because they want it, let them have it. And that's what happens. Now, the scripture that we read goes on to say, after God says, let them have it, he says, but when you give them what they ask for, warn them. Tell them that, yes, this is what you have asked for. And in your asking for this, this is what also comes with it. So if we go back to 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 through 9, and we go down to the bottom part of it, I'll pull it up again. Let's pull it up again. 1 Samuel, here it is. Let's go down to verse where it says, but, verse 9, it says, now listen to them. Wait, no, I probably should go back up to, let's just start with verse 6. Let's go all the way from 6 to 9. But when they said, give us a king to lead us, this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now, listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights. God says, yes, I will give you what you want, but understand that you will not be able to come to me complaining as if you did not know. I know you're going to come complaining because it didn't work out in your favor, because we already know it's not going to work out. God is like, I already know it ain't going to work out. And I know you're going to complain. You can come complaining, but don't complain to me like you didn't know. Don't come with me like you ignorant. Don't come to me like you're baffled and surprised. The same thing that's happening right now with the presidential administration that we are under right now. Those of us who voted, that majority of people that voted according to the Electoral College that ushered in this presidential administration, you cannot complain about it as if you did not know. Because several of us tried to tell you on every level. People tried to tell you in your household. People tried to tell you in your friend group. People tried to tell you in their sorority or fraternity at church. People tried to tell you on the local level in government. People tried to tell you on the state level in government. People tried to tell you on the federal level in government. People all around you, grassroots organizers, tried to tell you. People sent out Project 2025. People sent out all of these agendas. People told, it was right there in our faces, and you voted for him anyway. So the Lord says, listen, I'm going to give you I'm going to let you know that he ain't going to do right by you. So have what you want. I'm going to give it to you, but don't say I didn't. Don't act like you didn't. Don't act like you're surprised. Don't do that. Don't do that. And that's how it ends. And God says, let them have it. And I think that this is what I believe right now in this moment, because my mind changes on the regular. I really believe that in moments like this, God is sad. Like I feel like I hear God's sigh in this text, especially when God says, listen, it's not you that they have rejected, but they rejected me. And then he says this, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt. And so for those of us who believe that there's something mystical about believing in a God, I don't care which God it is, but those of us who believe that there's something mystical that happens within us, that once we feel the power of the Spirit come over us, once it washes over us, once we are baptized, or once we are slain in the Spirit, or once we receive the right, whatever it is that you believe ushers you into the presence, whatever that process is for you in your faith, we believe that something mystical happens that frees us, that we are no longer concerned about anything that can happen in this world, because there's a promise and a hope coming somehow, some way, from somebody, somewhere. And so we are freed up on some level from all of these notions and these ideas, and overwhelmed by the weight of this world and the sins of this world. We're freed up to know that there's something else at work that gives us hope. And so the people coming out of Egypt, that was their salvation. I'm coming up. God says, I brought you up out of Egypt. I delivered you unto me in a way. I made a right relationship with us, because you were not supposed to be enslaved. You were not supposed to be bound. And so I'm righting this wrong. I'm restoring justice unto you. I'm giving you reparations, your milk and your honey in this land of plenty, because I'm repairing the relationship that was broken by the people who enslaved you. I stepped in to repair it. But since the day I did that, up until this very day, you still reject me, says God. And I know that God, that makes God sad. Because imagine that, how it hurts us. And since we have anthropomorphized, I think I'm making up that word. I know anthropomorphic is a word, and I know that anthropomorphism is a word, but I don't think that philosophize. Basically, what I'm saying is, because we have made God human, because we have given God human traits and human characteristics, and that because we've done that, we give God pronouns, all of these things, we've made God human, and then we say that's because Jesus is in the likeness, and so we're human, and so okay, so we treat God the same way we treat ourselves. Think about your own times of rejection. You have been rejected by somebody in your life. You've been rejected by interviewers for a job. You've been rejected by friends in a group. You've been rejected by lovers that you were attracted to. You've been rejected by family members. You've been rejected by church denominations and doctrines. You've been rejected. That is not a good feeling. So for us to have given God these human characteristics, if we're going to keep God in that way for just this moment, then that makes God sad. I brought you into right relationship with me, covenant relationship with me, made our relationship sacred, set you apart so that everybody would know how much I love you. I granted you your freedom. And even in that, you still reject me, and you have not stopped rejecting me. And so I feel like when God says to Samuel, give them what they want, but make sure you warn them. I feel like that warning is an opportunity for us to know that the doors are always open for us to have direct access to God, because God knows that this is not going to work. God knows that it's going to be harmful to God's people. God is well aware that this journey that they are going to take is about to lead to a dead end that we're going to talk about next week. Because we're going to stay right here with this chapter and keep going, because God maps out what's going to happen. But the warning is so that you will know, hey, I'm telling you what's going to happen, and I'm telling you so that you know that when you experience it, I'm still here for you. Those of us who call, if you dare to use the word father or mother as you relate to God, you position God as a parent. And I don't know any better parent than the parent who says, I want you to be free to do what you feel is right. If you feel like this is the time when you need to move out and live on your own, that's fine. If you feel like this is the time where you need to go and move in with somebody else, your partner, your husband, whoever it is, you feel like if this is the step that you feel like you need to take, that's fine. But know that this is always your home. that you will always have a room here, that you will never, ever find these doors locked to you. I don't know a better parent than one who would say that. And that's what God is saying through Samuel to the people. You want the king? You can have the king. It ain't going to end well, but I'll still be here when it all falls apart. I will never, ever, ever leave you. That's my promise. And we can hold on to that even now. Thank you so much for joining us for the good fight. We have been live right here from 7 to 8 o'clock. Hey, we'll be right back next week. I hope to see you then.